Evening, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to share with you this evening. As was mentioned, my name is Rasulan Q, Hoppie, and I am the Superintendent for Secondary Curriculum Instruction and Assessment in the Peel District School Board. And again, it is my honor to be with you this evening. And my goal is this evening is to provide you with some words of provocation and hopefully some inspiration. As Pastor Valdez said, I am not a preacher, but I am a teacher. And so I'm hoping that I will be able to teach through the words that I bring to you this evening. And I think it's fitting that I give you a little bit more context in terms of who I am, so then that way what I have to share can resonate hopefully that much more with each of you who are listening. So I'll begin by telling you a little bit about myself. I was born in Toronto and I grew up in Scarborough. And my mother is from Jamaica, and my father, who has since passed, was from Guyana. And I have an older sister, and we grew up humbly. We grew up humbly. We were never in want for food or clothes, shelter, and most importantly, love. Most importantly, love. And like all of you, we were raised to value education, as it was the gatekeeper to success. And what was instilled in each of us was a very strong work ethic, a strong sense of that family values and community responsibility. And as a child growing up in Scarborough, I was blessed. I was blessed in many ways, on many days. And I was blessed with many opportunities due to my parents' sacrifices and their desire to see me succeed bore in me the desire to excel. I was keenly aware of their expectations of me, but not because I felt pressured to do well, but because I felt the love for me to do well. And so that reinforced the notion that I needed to work twice as hard as everyone else, as I'm sure everybody on this call has heard before. I needed to work twice as hard as everyone else. But that dovetailed with my own desire for excellence, which they fostered in me from a young age. And it wasn't until I was 10 years old that the rationale for their actions was explained to me after an incident at school in which I came home distraught. I came home distraught at the fact that I had received a lower mark than my peers, despite the fact that I had completed my work correctly where they had not. And so this thing, race, this very powerful social construct would pervade, nay, distort my consciousness and disrupt, nay, steal the childhood innocence that I was used to up to that point in my life. Until then, I was conscious of the differences that existed amongst my friends, but I was fortunate that I had no reason to attribute any more meaning to those specific traits than I did to any of the TV characters that I had on my lunchbox at the time when I was going to school. In fact, truth be told, at the time, I was in grade 3, and wearing my glasses was of greater social importance to me than the color of my skin at that time. However, as I grew and I matured, I learned more about myself and played a greater role within the community, and the Black community in particular. My whole family participated in various community groups. I was a founding member of Tropicana Community Services youth group, which is based out of Scarborough, Ontario. And we affectionately named ourselves GWAN, or GWAN, which stood for Group Without a Name. And it was those social interactions, coupled with the pride my parents instilled in me from a young age, that allowed me to develop the strength of character to explore my own racial and cultural identity as a Black man of Caribbean heritage, as well as appreciate the diversity that surrounded me as a natural part of growing up in Toronto. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. I attended Queen's University for both my undergraduate and my Bachelor of Education, and I was able to be enrolled in the concurrent education program. And upon graduating, my first teaching position was in Japan, where I was able to teach English and Canadian history and geography. Now, it had always been my dream to travel and live and experience Japanese culture. And my time there was absolutely amazing. I learned a lot. I learned a little bit of the language. I'm not sure if anybody on the call will understand, but minasan genki desu ka? I'm not seeing any responses, so maybe not, but not a problem. Sister Valda, no, not Pastor Valda, nothing. It's all good. But a lot of, I learned a little bit of the language, but what I did learn a lot about were the people and the cultural differences. Now, at the time, I was a 6-foot black man and I had dreads. I had dreads at that time. And I know that a little bit than how I present myself today. I know Pastor Val would not be able to imagine me in that capacity, but it's true. I I had dreads at that time, and I was acutely aware of my social location. But that did not hinder me in experiencing all that Japan had to offer. And that experience did reinforce in me a love for my own culture and my own home, and a deeper appreciation of where I grew up, of Toronto, in the greater Toronto area, and its variety of thought and people and language and cultures and race and climate and language, music, food, religion, it all. It really fostered that love within me. And recognizing that all of those different things contributed to a cultural milieu that is truly unlike any other place in the world. And it was upon my return to Canada, when I continued my teaching career here, that I reaffirmed that I wanted to give back and create opportunities for students so that they too could pursue their dreams and reach their goals, despite any obstacles that they may face. And it is this journey in education that has brought me here this evening. So I've given you a little bit about myself and who I am. And so I hope that you have that understanding that grounds me and grounds you in terms of understanding who I am, so I can speak to you about your own journeys and your daily journeys that you each take and you embark on a daily basis. Now, I was invited to speak today about the seat being empty. Your seat is empty. And as was mentioned, I am not a pastor. I'm not one who typically preaches, but I do teach. And I'm hoping that what comes forth in terms of drawing on this quote for our time together this evening, please understand that it comes from my heart and how God speaks to and through me. So 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. Jonathan, in this verse, he tried to give David a warning. You will be missed tomorrow because your seat will be empty. You cannot leave unnoticed because your seat will be empty. What does this really mean? Now, before I go into its meaning, I think what I want to share with you is that the context in this taking place is that you have to understand that normally, as warriors, because this was a time of war, that they break bread together. And so there was a time in which there was an expectation that David was going to be there and he was supposed to be breaking bread with Saul. However, he was not going to be. And so his absence was one in which, again, your seat is going to be empty. In other words, he was going to be missed. And what this speaks to, David's absence, would have raised the question in Saul's mind about his commitment to him. Normally, you are to be there. Normally, this is what you do. This is what is expected of you by his position, by who he is, by what he had done, by what he had accomplished. He was expected to be there, to break bread, to have meat with David. And his absence was going to be one in which that which normally does occur would not and did not. And so for me, this quote, "Your seat is empty," this quote for me speaks to the larger piece around commitment. Who and or what are you committed to? Who and or what are you committed to? Now, there is danger of being committed to material things. When we take our steps and when we engage in what we perceive to be the work, and may it be the work of God, the work of our vocation, but when we perceive ourselves to be going through and doing the work, but really when you strip it away and we take a look of what it is causing us to be able to, what is driving us to be able to do the things that we do, and we realize that we're not committed to being able to do the work, but we are committed to what it will afford us. It is at that point that we have crossed a dangerous line. It is at that point in which our commitment is to the wrong thing. Our commitment is no longer to what may have brought us here in the first place. Our commitment is not to what it's supposed to be. And that is, therein lies the danger. There is danger when not only to material things, but one is committed to positions as opposed to people or the right people. And what I mean by that is this, and many might find this ironic, but you may be committed to a person and you are willing to do any and everything for that person. And in this scripture, Jonathan was committed to David. And so he was warning him that his absence at the table with Saul is one in which he was warning him, he had to do what he felt was the right thing to do, because he loved him as if he loved his own soul, as the Bible will go on to say. But when we don't have that commitment, or we're committed to the wrong thing, what in fact we are committed to is not the person, but their position or their title. We are committed to that with which we think they're going to be able to afford us other things and other opportunities. And there is danger in that. We may say we are doing the right thing. We may say that we are committed to the right person. But you must really, truly ask yourself if it is the person you are committed to, or if it is the position that they hold. Because if you are committed to the person, then it doesn't matter where they are or who they are. For what will be flowing through you, that is the foundation of that commitment, and what it should be is the love of God. And that love and that commitment to God and its manifestation in your actions to make sure that you are driven to do the right thing is what will allow you to be able to truly reach your full potential. In other words, when we are committed, when we are doing the right thing, our presence will then be missed. Our presence will then be such that our seat will be empty if we are not there. Our seat will be empty because we are expected to be there because of the role that we play, the commitment that we have made, the dedication that we have for not the material things, but for the right things, to the right people, for the right reasons, for the right purpose. You can extend this to church. There are many with whom go through the motions of church. And there are many with whom they go through the motions of maybe physically being there, but are they present? Are they committed? And the question can be asked, are you faithful to the house of God? That whenever you are gone, it will be noticed. Will you be missed? Will your presence, or rather your absence, be felt because of what your commitment to God, your commitment to the church, the commitment to doing the right thing, and how it manifests itself? Will that be missed? If your seat is empty, will others miss you through your commitment? That is the question that you must ask yourself. For as we are wrapping up this year, 2022, and we are embarking on a new year of 2023, this is always the opportune time that we are able to look back. And when you look back at your actions, which always speak louder than words, when you look back at your commitments and the full body of your actions are laid bare, and you are now able to look back and you're able to truly see what you were committed to through your actions. Is God there? Is God present through your actions? Now, I'm on a Zoom call, and I'm blessed to be here through the wonders of technology to be able to talking to people in many jurisdictions and many different countries. And I'm able to speak my truth and to bring my perspective. But this church, this ministry, is not in the house of brick and mortar, but it is in the house of God through the love of God. And therein lies the power of church. So when I say, will your presence be felt, or your absence be felt? And is that commitment there? I don't mean a commitment to walking into a place just to say that you are there. I am talking about your actions. I am talking about those things which drive you, those things to which are the reason as to why you are doing what you are doing. Are you going to church for show? Or are you going to church to truly be in the presence of others with whom love God? And in answering that question and coming together, it is through that you now are able to say, if I am not there, will I be missed? If my seat is empty, what does that mean? And so the challenge that I give to all of you, myself included, because I am not going to be a hypocrite. I am not always able to be there in church. But I always have relation with God. I always say my prayer, and there is always a conduit to my heart and my actions. But I ask you, as a goal for next year, will you be missed if your seat is empty? Will you be missed if your seat is empty? And in answering that question, if the answer is no, then you know that you are not committed to the right things. You know that you are not committed to those things that matter most. Because when you are committed to God, and when you are in communion with others, the culmination of your joint commitment comes through in action. And it is through that commitment that you are now able to say that your actions are for the right thing and they will lead to the right outcomes. In education, as was mentioned by Pastor Balda, we are at a very challenging time in which what we know is that Black children have historically and currently not been served and offered the opportunities to have the equitable outcomes. And there are many with whom would be able to say on the surface that they are committed. But when you ask and you remove them from the equation and you ask, can this child survive and thrive? And the answer is no. You must ask yourself if what you are doing, if you are committed. You must ask yourself if what you are doing is truly having the impact that you think it should or that it needs to. As I mentioned, I had the blessing of being able to teach and live in Japan. I was there for 3 years. And I was able to, as I mentioned, learn a little bit of the language, but a lot about the people and the culture. But it was when I came back to Canada, when I came back home, that I truly realized that it is my commitment here to facilitate deeper change. So that way, what I was able to do, to be the relative anomaly as far as being able to have my dreams realized, should not be the case. But the full opportunity should be the norm for all students. And it is upon my return where my own education continued to this day, and recognizing that the plight of Black people are not alone in that regard. Indigenous people within this country of Canada have also suffered and continue to suffer. And our commitment in education to addressing those historical wrongs by fixing and addressing the current barriers that exist are the only ways by which we are going to be able to do better for everyone. My actions on a daily basis, my interactions on a daily basis are such that I hope that if I am not there one day, that my seat will be missed. And I hope that through my actions and my commitment, that what I am able to have and what I am able to see in terms of the impact is such that those whom I cherish and support, the children with whom I've dedicated my life to serve through my vocation, are able to have a better outcome than those that came before them. I am not only an educator, I am also a father, a proud father. I have 2 beautiful children who are in the same educational system that I work in. And I have a vested interest in making sure that their opportunities, that their outcomes are greater than those that I experience and greater than those that came before them. And you don't only need to be in education in order to have an impact that is able to change the lives of those whom you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. God speaks to us all. God moves through us all. We need to listen. We need to hear what God says. And when you listen and when you hear and you allow God's voice to work through you, your presence, no matter where you are, will be felt. And despite the challenges that you inevitably will face, that we all face, your commitment will be steadfast. Your commitment will be true. As was said in Matthew, through God, all things are possible. And so it is by centering God through your commitment that you will be able to affect the lives of those with whom you come in contact with. So much so that if you are not there, as David was not there, and your seat is empty, you will be missed. You will be missed. But keep in mind, the goal is not to be missed. The goal is not to be missed. The goal is to be present. The goal is to be there. The goal is to make sure that your actions resonate for generations. Your goal is to make sure that each time you are present with others, that each time that you are in the house of God, you reaffirm your commitment. Each time that you are there, reading from the word, hearing through song the love of God, that you are able to be present. You are able to be here, not to be missed, but to have impact, to manifest your commitment, to allow it to flourish, to allow it to be able to not be focused on the material things, because therein lies that danger, as I mentioned before, but to be focused on the acts through the love of God to affect the change that we want and that we need to see. New Year is just upon us. But before that, we celebrate the birth of Jesus. We celebrate a beautiful day, a beautiful moment in which we have all been given the opportunity to realize true love, to realize that there is possibility, there is hope. But we must be steadfast. We must be here. We must make each moment matter. So that way, the impact that we wish to have can be realized. Your seat should not be empty. If it is, the question as I posed, will you be missed? is the one with which you want it to matter that you will be. But your presence should not be missed because you should be there. You should be having that daily impact. You should be having that daily opportunity, or rather embracing that daily opportunity by which you are able to affect the change that we want to see. When you focus on the right things, when you are committed to God, when you center and allow the love to come through, your presence, may you be in education to be able to affect the change of the lives of children. May you be in any vocation in which you are working with others to be able to make better, to do better. It is through that you're able to realize a better world. And it is through that is how God moves and how God works. I will close by sharing my sister gave a quote to me. And this quote is one that is not religious in its scope, but it is one in which it has had a profound impact. And I'm going to read it to you because I thought it fitting for what I'm sharing now. I firmly believe that how we pursue what we do is rooted in how we see who we are and the attitude that we bring. The commitment that I was mentioning is all about the attitude that we have. And my sister gave me a quote many years ago by Charles Swindoll, and I will read it to you as such. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. My sister shared that quote with me, and I wanted to share it with you this evening because I feel that your attitude is inextricably linked to your commitment, which is focused on, as I had mentioned, our presence and being here, which in turn, if you see the thread winding through, is about, is your seat empty? As you enter into this new year, as we are about to embrace the beauty of yet again another Christmas, do not forget that the attitude you bring, the commitment that you have, will determine whether or not your presence is felt. You do not want your seat to be empty. You want the actions that you have to mean that you are constantly present and you are constantly there. But if it is empty, will you be missed? And if the answer is no, then you have work to do. If the answer is yes, then continue doing the work. Continue centering God. Continue sharing in the love. continue doing those things that God has blessed you with the opportunity to do. And with that, I thank you for allowing me to bring my story and my time to you this evening.
Bless the Lord, bless the Lord, bless the Lord.